Hi everyone, my name is Monica Lehman and this is my Step 262 final presentation. This semester I was at Frontier Academy with Mrs. Roth and her 10th grade civics class. This is my mission statement. My classroom will be a safe and comfortable learning environment in which all students are supported emotionally, socially, and cognitively in order to build a foundation for lifelong learning. Before I get into teaching my lesson, I first want to set the scene. I am a 9th grade civics teacher, and the current unit is the United States Constitution. Today's lesson is going to be the Bill of Rights, so let's get into it. Hi class, today's lesson is the Bill of Rights. If you have any questions throughout the lesson, feel free to raise your hand, and if you're not comfortable speaking in front of the class, feel free to use the Pear Deck link that's always available, and you can message me anonymously. So the question that we should be able to answer by the end of the day is, what rights are protected under the first 10 amendments of the Constitution? We have 2 learning objectives today. 1, you will be able to explain the key rights stated in the Bill of Rights, and 2, you will be able to determine which amendments each right came from. All right, I'm going to take a quick pause right here. My lesson is intended to be divided into 2 different parts, but for the purposes of this video, I'm only going to be teaching part 2. But I want to explain a little bit of part 1 is going to look like, just because it helps understand part 2 a little bit better. So for part 1, I would provide a handout of the Bill of Rights to all of my students and then divide them into 9 different groups. Each group will have been assigned an amendment. Students will have read through the amendments carefully within their groups and figured out what they think it means in their own terms. After about 5 minutes in their groups, we'll come together as a class and we'll explain the amendments as a class. The first amendment will have been done as a group before they were divided into their individual groups. After we did all of that, we will have come together and we will have made a key that looks a little bit like this. This key will be available on the board in the front of the class throughout the whole class period, and it will help with the second part of this lesson. Okay, it's time to get into part 2 of this lesson. It's time to play Bill of Rights bingo. This is the bingo sheet that everyone is going to be provided. As you can see, the key that we developed as a class is at the bottom of the paper, and you can reference this anytime you would like throughout the game. I'm going to go over the instructions now, but these instructions are also written on the back of your bingo sheet, so if you want to reference them throughout the game, you can at any time. So first, everyone's going to grab a bingo card if they haven't already, and then for students on Zoom, you can use the following link to access an online version of the game. I will put it in the chat as well as a link to the instructions. All right, so for this bingo game, I'm going to name a specific situation. You're going to determine which amendment applies to that situation and then cross off the square with the proper amendment on your bingo card. So for example, I can say, which amendment allows me to wear a t-shirt that says F you when I go to the DMV? And then you will determine that the first amendment allows me to do this because of freedom of speech. You will cross off the square that says first on your bingo sheet, like so. There may be more than one example/situation for each amendment. So for example, you may cross off a square that says first more than once. The key we developed at the beginning of the class is provided for you on your bingo sheet. Like I said before, please feel free to use this as a reference anytime you need. If you cross off 5 squares in a row, you get a bingo. If you have any questions at all, please raise your hand or use Pear Deck. We're going to play several rounds. For the first 1 or 2 rounds, we're going to have a discussion after each scenario as I present them. And then after a couple rounds after that, we'll start playing without any discussion and then we'll see how it goes. All right, let's get started with the first scenario. In 2033, the US government decides that the people have become too dangerous. They decide to make all weapons illegal. Larry Lawyer, head of the Department of Justice, gently reminds Congress they can't do this. Why not? Does anyone know the answer? And then in this case, we'll have a class discussion. A student will likely say the Second Amendment. I'll ask why they believe the Second Amendment, and they'll say because of the right to bear arms. And then they'll cross off second on their bingo sheet. All right, here is the second scenario. The US government cannot torture people to death no matter how heinous their crime. Why not? And then as a class, we discussed that this is the 8th Amendment because the 8th Amendment protects you from cruel and unusual punishment. So good job, everyone. Here's scenario number 3. Joe is the world's slowest trial lawyer. He takes so long to get through a case that his clients wait years on average to go to trial. His client, Chris, doesn't think this is constitutional. Why? And then as a class, we would discuss that it's the Sixth Amendment because the Sixth Amendment protects your rights to a speedy trial. For the purposes of this video, I'm not going to go through every scenario that I have. I did put a bunch on this video so that if you want to see examples, you can pause the video and look at them. But I'm just going to go through them pretty quickly right now. All right, so Kelly won bingo. Congratulations, Kelly. So let's go over our essential question again. What rights are protected under the first 10 amendments of the Constitution? And then as a class, we would just discuss some of those rights that we just went through bingo. And then we'll just go over our learning objectives again. You will be able to explain the key rights stated in the Bill of Rights, and you will be able to determine which amendments each right came from. I think we did that. All right, so before we end class, we're gonna have our exit ticket. So you're gonna take 2 minutes to write out, why do you feel the creation of the Bill of Rights was necessary? And then that will be the end of my lesson. All right, I'm now gonna go over the accommodations and modifications that I would have used during this lesson. So I would have simplified instructions with visuals for students maybe with dyslexia or CLD learners. And then I would also have translated instructions / handouts for students who might need them. So I might have the Bill of Rights translated into Spanish or French or whatever language a student may need. And then I will also have Pear Deck for students maybe with ACEs or anxiety so that they can ask a question or answer a question anonymously without the anxiousness that comes with speaking in front of a class. I'll also have stimulating objects for my students with ADHD, so such as a squishy ball or a fidget spinner or something like that. And then we'll also have brain breaks. I would probably put that between part 1 and part 2 of my lesson. This will give students the opportunity to walk around, get a drink of water, stretch, whatever they need to do. And then as always, I'm always gonna have one-on-one time. I'm gonna have that before class or the end of class. So if students need extra help or have extra questions, they can come to me. That's the end of my lesson plan presentation. Thank you all for listening. I hope you all have a good rest of your year. Goodbye.